Here's a hard truth most men don't want to hear. A woman can figure out that you're weak in the first few minutes of texting. Sometimes in seconds. It doesn't matter where you met, dating apps, Instagram, any social network. And there's one message pattern that gives it away instantly. It's when the conversation suddenly turns into a lecture about personal boundaries. My boundaries. My personal space. What you're allowed to do. What you're not allowed to say. This sounds mature, modern, psychologically healthy. But in early communication, this isn't about safety. It's a test. And most men fail it without even realizing they were being tested. Here's how the trap works. She declares a set of rules right at the start. Rules you didn't break. Rules no one asked for. Rules that only go one direction. What happens next? You have only two options. Option 1, you accept the rules. You start adapting. You sacrifice your comfort for hers. You become careful, predictable, safe. Option 2, you walk away. But you don't want to. You like her. So most men don't leave. That's the moment your position collapses. From her perspective, this instantly sorts you into a category. If your value is low, you get quietly phased out. Replies slow down. Interest fades. The meeting never happens. If you're more resourceful, you might stay longer. Not because of desire, but because you're convenient. Because you can be used a bit, attention, validation, maybe favors. Long term? This is a dead end for a man. And here's the paradox that confuses most guys. From a male perspective, this feels absurd. Imagine going to a dating app and immediately outlining strict personal boundaries. It's like going to a cafeteria and announcing you refuse to eat anything. You're here to interact, to connect, to flirt. Talking about boundaries this early kills the entire point. So why does it work on men? Because the conditioning starts immediately. This is where she establishes who leads and who follows, how you should behave, what role you're supposed to play. Many men think, if I do this right, everything will be fine. She's smart. She knows psychology. She has standards. That logic is fatal. Because this behavior usually has one goal, to seize control of the interaction. If you accept this format, you become readable, boring, non-threatening, and easy to replace. She shifts her attention to someone else. Now here's the manipulation. She often says, let's respect each other's boundaries. Sounds fair. Sounds mutual. But it isn't. In practice, only one person's boundaries matter. Yours exist only on paper. You're still expected to adapt to hers. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Women who build interactions this way are setting themselves up for disappointment. The man who fully accepts this dynamic will eventually bore her. He lives for her comfort. He protects the balance at all costs. Desire dies there. The men who could trigger real attraction disengage early. They don't play this game. That's why so many profiles later say, I'm not the type who falls in love easily. It's not that she can't. It's that she filtered out the men who could have made her feel it. Another common mistake men make here is trying to argue. They explain. They debate. They try to prove she's wrong. They tell her how a woman should behave. That's worse. The moment you enter a debate about her boundaries, you're already losing. You're playing on her field, by her rules. Best case, nothing happens. Worst case, conflict, tension, a ruined interaction. If your goal is to meet her, not to win an argument, this is pointless. So what do you do instead? One option is simply not continuing the interaction. If boundaries are weaponized this early, they won't disappear later, they'll get stricter. Another option is not taking it seriously at all. And this is where most men misunderstand strength. Strength is not arguing. Strength is emotional immunity. You can deflect. You can joke. You can tease lightly. You can redirect the conversation back to reality, meeting in person. Flirting avoids collision. Arguments create it. If you feel an urge to put her in her place, ask yourself why. That urge usually comes from dependence on her approval, and she feels that immediately. The most dangerous scenario is when a man sees her as an authority figure, like a strict teacher or a judge. Suddenly it feels like an exam. One wrong move and you fail. Fear-based communication never creates attraction. Never. And here's the final paradox for this part. Any form of dating is already a violation of personal space. Approaching, messaging, getting closer. Without some level of intrusion, intimacy is impossible. Older generations understood this intuitively. People talked, approached, interacted. Today, normal human contact is reframed as boundary violation, and many men fall for it. The key is simple. Don't buy into the frame. But don't fight it either. In the next part, I'll show exactly how to respond without losing position, without arguing, and without turning the interaction into a power struggle. Now let's talk about how to respond without losing position. Because most men either freeze, argue, or overreact. All three kill attraction. First thing you need to understand. When a woman brings up boundaries early, she's not asking for respect. She's checking your reaction. Calm or emotional. Grounded or needy. Leader or follower. That's it. So the worst thing you can do is treat it seriously. Seriousness equals fear. Fear equals low value. Option number 1, disengage. Quietly. No drama. No explanations. No, I respect your decision. You just stop investing. If boundaries are weaponized on day 1, they will control the relationship later. This option saves time and self-respect. Option number 2, don't validate the frame. You don't argue with it, but you also don't accept it. You deflect. Lightly. Playfully. Calmly. You move the conversation forward instead of deeper into rules. For example, when she says something like, I have strong personal boundaries, the worst reply is, of course, I respect them. That puts you underneath instantly. A better response is reframing. Something like, good to know. Let's see if we even like each other in real life first. Calm. Grounded. No tension. You're not dismissing her. You're not complying either. You're bringing reality back into the conversation. Another powerful approach is humor. Humor breaks control attempts without confrontation. You can lightly exaggerate the situation. Wow, we're already negotiating boundaries and we haven't even had coffee yet. Said with a smile, this resets the dynamic. What matters is not the exact words. It's the emotional tone. Relaxed. Unbothered. Slightly amused. Men often think strength means dominance. It doesn't. Strength is indifference to outcome. When you're not afraid of losing her, she feels it immediately. Now, an important warning. Some men try to expand her boundaries by force. By logic. By pressure. By explaining why she's wrong. This is a huge mistake. The moment you try to change her mind, you give her power. You signal that her approval matters too much. Never try to educate a woman about her boundaries. Never try to win that argument. Even if you're right, you lose. If she escalates and keeps pushing rules, observe her behavior, not her words. Women who are genuinely interested don't build walls at the start. They create openings. Excessive boundaries early usually mean one of two things: low attraction or a need for control. In both cases, your best move is the same. Reduce investment. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. You're not there to pass her test. She's not an authority. She's just another human you're checking compatibility with. The moment you stop seeing the interaction as an exam, your behavior changes automatically. This is why practice matters so much. Men who lack experience treat every interaction like it's rare and fragile. Men with volume don't. They've seen these patterns before. They don't react emotionally. They adjust or they walk away. Think of communication like a market. Beginners pay full price. Experienced people negotiate without effort. Not aggressively. Naturally. Because they're not afraid to leave. And that's the core skill. The ability to walk away internally. Even if you keep talking. When you reach that point, boundaries stop being scary. Tests stop working. Power games collapse. In the next part, I'll explain the most dangerous internal mistake men make in these situations, why attraction dies when you try to be correct, and how fear silently turns you into the exact guy she never desires. Now let's talk about the most dangerous mistake men make in these situations. It's not what you say. It's what's happening inside your head. The moment a woman brings up boundaries and you feel tension, anxiety, or the need to respond correctly, you've already stepped into the weak position. Because now the interaction is no longer about connection. It's about approval. At that point, many men start monitoring themselves. Watching every word. Filtering every message. Trying not to mess up. This is where attraction quietly dies. Why? Because desire doesn't grow from correctness. It grows from polarity. From tension. From unpredictability. From a man who is not afraid to slightly disrupt comfort. When you're afraid to cross an invisible line, you stop being a man. You become a student taking an exam. And no woman feels desire for someone she can control with rules. This is why fear-based communication never works. Even if you follow every rule perfectly, the emotional tone betrays you. She feels that you're acting. Performing. Seeking permission. And here's the paradox most men miss. If you never challenge her emotional space even slightly, she will never develop feelings for you. Attraction requires movement. Movement requires friction. Zero friction equals zero spark. That's why the idea of never violating boundaries in early dating is absurd. Dating itself is a violation. You're entering someone's attention. Their time. Their emotional space. The question is not whether you cross boundaries, but how you do it. Confident men cross them naturally. Calmly. Without apology. Without aggression. And if a woman truly isn't comfortable, she'll communicate it through behavior, not speeches. Now let's address another illusion. Many men believe women who talk a lot about boundaries are high quality and emotionally mature. Sometimes that's true. But very often, it's the opposite. It's insecurity disguised as control. It's fear disguised as standards. And men who are desperate to prove they're safe fall right into it. Here's what usually happens long term. She chooses a man who accepts the imbalance. Who lives for her comfort. Who adjusts constantly. For a while, she feels important. Desired. In control. But attraction fades fast. And when it does, she tells herself men are boring, immature, or unavailable. The men who could have challenged her emotionally were filtered out at the door. This is why dating apps are full of people who can't find connection. It's not bad luck. It's selection logic. Now let's be clear. This is not advice to be rude. Or disrespectful. Or pushy. That's insecurity too. Strength is not aggression. Strength is internal stability. If a woman mentions boundaries once, you observe. If she repeats it, you disengage or deflect. If it becomes a theme, you walk. No drama. No speeches. No need to prove anything. Men lose power when they try to explain themselves. When they try to justify their intentions. When they try to be understood. You don't need to be understood. You need to be grounded. This is where practice becomes irreplaceable. You can't think your way into this mindset. You have to experience it. Through volume. Through repetition. Through seeing the same patterns again and again until they stop triggering you. At some point, something shifts. You stop needing outcomes. You stop chasing reactions. You stop caring whether she approves. And ironically, that's when women feel safest and most attracted. Because nothing is more attractive than a man who doesn't need to win. In the next part, I'll break down practical behavioral rules, what to ignore, what to deflect, when to walk away, and how to keep control without force or manipulation. Now let's turn this into practical rules. Not theory. Not psychology. Actual behavior you can apply immediately. Rule 1, never over-explain. The moment you start explaining your intentions, values, or why you're not like other guys, you're already below. Explanation is a reaction. Reaction is weakness. Calm action beats perfect logic every time. Rule 2, don't argue about boundaries. Ever. Arguments signal that her approval matters too much. Even if you win the debate, you lose attraction. If you feel pulled into a discussion about what's allowed and what's not, redirect or disengage. Rule 3, watch behavior, not words. A woman who's interested doesn't create obstacles early. She creates opportunities. If the interaction feels like a negotiation instead of a flow, that's your signal. Rule 4, reduce investment first, not last. Most men do the opposite. They invest more when resistance appears. That's backwards. Resistance early means you pull back emotionally, not push forward. Rule 5, never make her the authority. The moment you treat her like a judge, teacher, or gatekeeper, polarity collapses. She's not evaluating you. You're evaluating compatibility. Now let's talk about how to respond in real situations. If she says, I have strict personal boundaries, you don't apologize and you don't comply. You can calmly say something neutral and forward-moving. Fair enough. Let's see if we even vibe in person. This keeps you grounded and outcome independent. If she keeps returning to rules, you stop feeding the interaction. Shorter replies. Less emotional investment. Or you exit entirely. No announcement needed. Another effective move is light teasing. Not sarcasm. Not mocking. Just relaxed humor. We're already setting rules and we haven't even had coffee yet. Said with ease, this removes tension and shifts frames. What you're doing here is simple. You're refusing to play defense. Now, an important internal check. If you feel irritated, triggered, or eager to prove a point, pause. That reaction means you're emotionally hooked. Step back. Power returns the moment you stop needing the outcome. This leads to the most important rule of all. You must be willing to lose her. Not as a tactic. As a mindset. Men who fear loss communicate fear. Men who accept loss communicate strength. This is why practice is everything. You can't fake abundance. You build it. Through volume. Through exposure. Through real interactions, not theory alone. Men who only consume content stay stuck. Men who interact, reflect, and adjust evolve fast. At a certain point, something clicks. You stop seeing these situations as problems. They become filters. Tests stop feeling threatening. They become information. And that's the shift. From trying to win to choosing wisely. In the final part, I'll tie everything together, explain why authenticity beats strategy, and why the man who stops chasing control ends up with it naturally. Now let's close this. Because the real lesson here is deeper than boundaries, texts, or dating apps. The men who struggle most are not unattractive, not stupid, and not incapable. They're stuck in performance mode. They think dating is about saying the right thing, following the right rules, avoiding mistakes. That mindset kills everything. Attraction is not built on correctness. It's built on authenticity plus emotional stability. When a man hides his intentions, suppresses his personality, and constantly adjusts to avoid conflict, he becomes invisible. Safe. Predictable. Forgettable. That's why strategy alone never works. You can memorize responses. You can learn techniques. But if inside you're afraid to lose, afraid to displease, afraid to walk away, women feel it immediately. This is why boundaries stop working as manipulation once you change internally. The moment you're not seeking approval, the entire dynamic flips. Tests lose power. Control attempts fail. Not because you resist them, but because they no longer matter. And this is something you can't fake. It comes from repetition. From practice. From interacting enough to realize that no single woman is the prize. Compatibility is. At some point, you stop trying to get women. You start selecting. You notice who creates ease and who creates tension. Who invites connection and who demands compliance. And here's the irony. The man who doesn't fear crossing invisible lines is the man women trust the most. Because he's real. He's present. He's not calculating every move. Dating will always involve some intrusion. Some tension. Some uncertainty. That's not a flaw. That's the process. If you remove all friction, you remove attraction. So the goal is not to avoid mistakes. The goal is to stop being afraid of them. Once you reach that point, you don't need tricks. You don't need scripts. You don't need to argue about boundaries. You simply move forward. Or you walk away. Calmly. And that's the difference between a man who gets filtered out, and a man who filters.